The record button has just gone on, and I believe time now is about 6:30 or 6:33. It is the opening of the Norton Conservation Commission meeting for Monday, December 14th at, as I said, approximately 6:30. We're obligated to read the preamble because this is a necessary remote meeting. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law Chapter 30A, Paragraph 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, so being a little after 6:30, we can begin with our initial hearing, which is a request for determination of applicability, determination 1104 for Dylan Ribeiro concerning 7 Young Avenue, which is map 16, parcel 39. The proposed project is to replace an existing cesspool with a new septic system within 100 foot of wetlands. So do we have a representative of the applicant tonight?
Yep, this is Dave Oberlander with BDO Engineering.
All right, if you could give us a description of the project.
Okay,
This
is an existing 3-bedroom house on Young Ave, which is just off of Freeman Street. It's on a little spit of the reservoir, that little inlet, and there's a brook on one side and the inlet on the other. So pretty much, good portion of the lot is in the 100-foot buffer. We put the system outside of the 50-foot and tucked it up as close to the house as we could, and it's pretty, straightforward septic system to replace an existing cesspool. That's about it. If you have any questions.
Sediment control, Dave?
Yeah, well, that's the hay-colored line there. Yep, you got it.
So this is a tank, and it looks like a fairly limited leaching area.
Yep, it's a tank with flow diffusers surrounded by stone.
And it looks like it's slightly raised or not?
Slightly, yeah. You can see the magenta-colored contour lines are proposed, and the dashed lighter lines are the existing. So it's a slight matter of certainly less than a foot over the existing grade. It's already kind of the yard comes out fairly level and then slopes down. So we'll just come out a little more level and then slope down.
All right. Jennifer, any questions, comments?
Yeah, it's pretty clear all the way down as lawn to the wetland. They added this red line. There's a pipe that comes from the house that goes directly to the bank into the stream. And Dave, you'd said that was a sump pump?
Yeah, I went out and looked at it today, and I couldn't see in the windows. The homeowners are down in Florida, but I was able to call them, and they told me that it's a sump pump.
Okay. And this is an irrigation well in the back?
Irrigation well that hasn't been used in years and years and years.
Okay. Is it just the pump or is it the well?
I don't think when we did the perk test, the homeowner just said it was, it's nothing. Haven't used that forever, so I didn't even investigate it any further than that.
So it's let me see. I don't know if you can see this picture.
Yeah, picture.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the pipe that goes out into the stream, and it comes from here.
So presumably it's just groundwater if it's a sump pump?
Yeah, and from looking in the cellar windows today, there's a lot of stuff in there, so I don't think they get flooded too often, or either that or it works pretty good. But I didn't see any. There weren't any signs in the discharge area that looked like it had been on recently. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from commission members?
Yeah, I just had a quick one concerning the brook. I assume that's intermittent?
Yeah, the homeowner said it does dry out. He said he used to go in there and clean it out, get all the leaves out years ago. So
It's not mapped on a quad map, is it?
It is on the quad map, though. I mean, I noticed that it should be in your packet.
But is it, on the quad map, is it shown as intermittent or perennial?
It just shows as a blue line. I don't.
Right, so you have to look at the difference between the thickness of the line. If it's a light line, it's intermittent. If it's a darker line, it's perennial. Oh, it does look like it's perennial.
Yeah, you're right. It's a solid line.
No, it's in Riverfront. I mean, personally, I don't think it changes anything in terms of there's no alternatives analysis, but I would ask you to note that on the plan. Show that we have, show mean annual and show the 200-foot front area so we have it for the record.
Yeah, I do show the high edge of wetlands, high water bank. It's all kind of one thing. It looked like it was man-made at some point. At least the channel was. It's because it's pretty straight and uniform. Yeah, the 200-foot would be. It's only 125-foot wide property, so the 200 feet would be over through the soil log on the plan.
Right. So in that case, you would add a note that says the lot in its entirety is within the riverfront area.
Okay.
Further questions from members of the commission? And we have quite a few participants. You have the option to ask a question by going down to the bottom of your screen, clicking the participants button. It brings up the participants list, and you also have the option to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. So if there is anyone who has a question, you should click the raise hand button now. And this, of course, will apply to additional hearings later this evening. So I do not see any hands raised. That being the case, I think we can consider a motion. This seems to be a fairly discrete project. It's a request for determination, and it's fairly limited. So we can consider a motion from the commission members to initially close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on DET number 1104.
All right. We have a motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by Dan Doyle. do a roll call vote. Dan Pearson,
Aye.
Gene,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
and Dan Doyle.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So I thank you for presenting this tonight, and I think we're all set.
-3.
Say again?
I make a motion for a -3.
All right, a motion has been made by Gene for a -3, which means no notice of intent is required if carried out according to plan, and is seconded by?
It might actually be a 2. I don't have the form in front of me, but it might be a 2.
Okay.
The same thing. It's in a resource area, but there's no negative impact.
Okay, so we can still proceed with the motion. So we need a second for Gene's. And we have a second by Dan Doyle. So roll call vote. Dan Pearson
Aye.
and Gene,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
and Doyle.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So it is effectively a -3, although possibly a -2. So thank you, and we'll move on. We'll move on to the next item.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's my first Zoom meeting.
Well,
Really?
did you
I'm trying to
see
get out.
You just press
All
that.
right. Next item is notice of intent 250-1059 concerning AR Building Company, 195 Mansfield Avenue, map 9, parcel 273. Been continued for multiple meetings, and it concerns proposed project to install stormwater management associated with construction of a 40B apartment building within 100 foot of bordering vegetated wetland. And I believe we have a consultant tonight, although I don't see him on the list unless he's the phone that is on it. Oh,
Everybody's here.
Oh, John, there you go. Popped and Brian. All right, so you have it. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant. To reiterate, this is a proposed residential apartment building with amenities with only the stormwater management aspect of the project located within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands associated with Norton Reservoir. Since we last were before you quite so many months ago, the project has gone through extensive peer review, and we're working towards completion of that peer review. Not expecting to close at this meeting. There's still some additional details to iron out, but we felt it would be a good opportunity just to touch base with the board, see if there are any additional questions or comments that we can address before we do wrap up anything. And I can turn it over to Brandon Carr from Dupree Engineering to provide a stormwater update if you guys would like that.
If we could actually let John
All right, and
hop in there real quick, because he has another meeting.
Oh, okay.
So if he wants to just touch on his main points just before he has to leave, that would be helpful. And then we'll come back.
And the only other question is whether there's any kind of plan that we can post if anybody has that and we can share. If not, we can just go ahead with John.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, I don't know does anybody have a plan that they want to put up? It doesn't matter to me either way.
All right, well, let's go ahead, John.
Okay, so it's down to just a few comments, and I know I saw an email today with some responses to those, which obviously there wasn't time to really look at too intensively, and there's no, supporting documents. But one of them is the basin has 2-to-1 side slopes over portions of it. The infiltration, it's combination infiltration detention basin, and the Mass DEP handbook has 3-to-1 side slopes required. And the handbook really is sort of an extension of the regulation. I look at it as, it's actually listed as the specifications, actually. So that's something that would need to be considered. And my understanding from the email today is they were looking at a way to get around not having to have 2-to-1 slopes. So that would make that comment go away. The other one that's, I think, potentially significant, I went out to dig some test pits, to witness some test pits, I should say. And the system includes a portion of underground pipes that would be a detention area, essentially. The water would back up into these pipes because there's only a limited area for an open basin. So underneath the rear parking lot is all big pipes put together. We know from the soil testing that those pipes would be in the seasonal high water table at times, and they proposed sort of a watertight pipe, but it's not really watertight. It has a certain allowance for leakage. And the design that I reviewed has these pipes going into the infiltration area. So if you have a constant leakage, it's not like it just flows out a pipe into a stream or wetland ultimately. It flows into a hole that has to then infiltrate into the ground, which means that would be a continuous, in the spring at least, source of constant flow into this area. Would maybe more than likely make it difficult for the thing to constantly drain properly, and could ultimately change the characteristics of the soil. So that's one issue with that. And then you couple it with the other aspect, which is that the recharge volume required under the DEP regulations, it's not very good soil, so it's like 1/4 of an inch over the impervious area, so it's not a huge amount. But the depression within the basin would hold significantly more, and even just an inch of runoff off of the impervious area would, take about 120 hours to drain. And we know in the spring, if you get snow melt, you get rainfall, you're going to have an inch of rain here and there, and it's going to take forever to drain. There wouldn't be the volume available for the next storm. And my opinion is that over time that would affect the function of the basin, because it would start to you'd have a muddy situation. The water would get the soils would get hydric, it would get wetland plants growing in it, and it would seal up the bottom, so it wouldn't work as proposed. So those were sort of the biggest issues. There's another little one where they have 2 catch basins linked together, but that's simply addressed by adding a manhole, and they could take care of that. But I think those are the main things, and I don't agree with some of the way that they did some of the calculations, because if you do just the water quality volume, but you're using the system, the basin, for both TSS removal and everything else, you have to use the highest value, and the TSS removal is about double what the recharge volume calculation would be. So, those are the issues I think that need to be addressed. I know I saw a plan that showed it showed a different type of system. The basin switched a little bit. There's an underground infiltration component, and so they can address some of these issues that are in my letter. But again, we'll have to see the whole package calculations and all that to make sure that it works. But those are, I think, the big item issues on the plan. And I got a few minutes, so if you have any questions for me.
Okay.
So, John, before they get on the path of looking to go from a 3-to-1 to a 2-to-1, I would like to ask the applicant why they're looking to get relief from that.
Good evening. It's Brandon Carr from Dupreet Engineering. Jennifer, I can share the plan, but I think you need to give me permission to. With regards to the 2-to-1 request, we're pulling that back. We're no longer requesting that. As John said, we submitted him a quick plan today, but we'll be submitting a full package by probably the end of the week. But we did remove the 2-to-1 slope in the rear of the project. I'm just pulling the screen up here. So if you remember, I know it's been a few months since we've been here. The project consists, it's a 4.5 acre site. It's kind of long in narrow rectangular shaped site. The Norton Reservoir is off the plan to the right here. Buildings up here ringed by parking. There's a parking lot in the rear. I'll point out the only real layout change from maybe this part of the site from the pond towards Mansfield Avenue that's changed since you last saw this was part of the ZBA process. We agreed to not construct 18 parking spaces in a drive aisle here basically unless it's ever needed for the development. So that was something that the ZBA asked if we could reduce parking a little bit, but we left the stormwater design and everything as if that parking was someday to be constructed. We don't anticipate that it would ever be constructed, but we just left it in the drainage calculations. So basically John's comments revolved mostly around the basin. This is the previous configuration. As you can see, we had a 2-to-1 slope here. We're revising that to remove that. I can pull up the new plan here. And I agree. I sent this over to John later in the day, so I didn't anticipate for him to even have time to look at it. So like I said, we'll be following up with a full submission. But this will be the revised kind of configuration, and we'll supply all the backup calculations. So the basin shrinks a little towards the south, introduces an underground infiltration system component here. And then this is that larger piped detention system that John mentioned under the rear parking area. And to address his concern about the water tightness of the pipes, we have proposed the entire thing be wrapped basically in a 30 mil poly watertight liner. So that's been added to the details of the plans. But just to specify, that 2-to-1 slope is no longer proposed, so that's no longer requested.
So are you eliminating any and all access to the reservoir? I mean, it looks like it through your grading.
Yes, this site actually doesn't abut the reservoir. There's a small strip of land on the abutting site that is between us and the reservoir. And as part of the ZBA process, actually, the abutter to the north has brought up that they didn't want anyone basically trying to get to the reservoir, because you can't get to the reservoir from our lot. You would have to cross either the abutter to the east or the abutter to the north. So that's why we proposed some fencing and some signage, basically to keep the residents, surrounding and members of the public on the, I guess, kind of inland side of the pond, if you were to look at it that way. But regarding John's other comments, I think we're close to kind of reaching, hopefully addressing most of them. Like I said, the 2-to-1 has gone away, the watertight system gone away. We've recalculated the recharge volume and drain down time, which we can provide him all the backup calculations for that. Like I said, most likely by the end of the week.
All right. So, John, any response to that, or are you all set with that?
No, I obviously have to look at the final stuff and just to confirm that it's okay. But I think that the liner, subject to it being sort of inspected and tested, I've seen that done at other sites and it's been successful. 3-to-1 slope, if they make it, then they make it. That's what's required. So I don't have a problem with that. I'll have to, I haven't really given much thought or investigation into the infiltration system. I mean, there is limited area. I know that where they're proposing infiltration was the only place that we found suitable soils when we tested out in the back here. I don't know if other parts of the site have suitable soils, because there weren't really tests, at least I didn't see tests in other portions of the site. I did at one point test the property to the north. I did witness some tests up there in the very front of that site. To the north, property to the north did have some suitable soils in the very front. So I don't know if there's other places, but if they can get it all to work in the one, I would say that would meet the requirements.
All right. Any further questions, Jennifer?
No.
The applicants have any further comments or questions?
Maybe just to clarify the desire for fencing. I think previously we talked about having a split rail fence along the exterior of the basin footprint. Is that still in line with signage that the commission would be looking for?
That is the no disturbance zone policy with the visual barrier requirement. Yeah. So you have fencing in the front now, and
Correct. Yeah, we have along the northern property line here. It's a solid 6-foot stockade fence until you hit the 100-foot, and then we were proposing a split rail fence along the front of the basin here. And then I forget if we.
yeah, what about the back of the basin?
We weren't proposing one along the back, but we could definitely add that.
So that would be where the visual barrier would be required to go. Not so much the front, it's the back to keep people from going beyond the limit of work. Yeah.
Yes, we will add that.
Okay.
All right, any further questions from any member of the commission? And if not, participants can have the option of asking a question by, again, bringing your cursor to the bottom of the screen, clicking the participants button, and then clicking the raise hand button. Just scanning here through participants, I do not see any hands up. And if that's the case, we can consider, and this is obviously something that's going to require a continuation, so we can consider a motion for continuation unless there is further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue file 250-1059 to the
January 11 is the next meeting.
to the January 11th meeting.
Okay, motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Gene for continuation of this hearing until January 11th. Roll call vote, Dan Pearson?
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
And Ron has joined us.
Aye.
Carrie? And Lisa?
Aye.
And Dan Doyle is there somewhere?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, moving on to the next notice of intent, which is file number 250-1065 concerning Leonard Street Phase 2. And at 0 Leonard Street, map 11, parcels 22, 25-0, 25-01, map 12, parcel 15. This is continued from 4 prior meetings, and it concerns construction of the road and associated utilities within riverfront area and 100 foot of bordering vegetated wetlands. By way of information, there was a site walk with members of the commission on Saturday, the most recent Saturday, and so we reviewed the various areas of concern. And I see Mark is on. I assume you're going to be the project representative.
Good evening. Again, Mark Dibb with Condyne Engineering Group. So yes, we had a successful site visit on Saturday, discussed a few of the items that we're looking at. And what I'm going to do tonight is, first thing is to just review a response to a few questions from Stephen Novick at our first hearing. So I'm going to go through that response. Then I will go through just a few quick items we discussed at the site visit, and then just take any more questions or concerns that you guys may have had as a result of the site visit, now that you've had a couple days to think about that. So I think for now I can just read Stephen's questions and just read off our response. The first question was, is there specific is there specific information in the context of the report that describes in detail how the access road will bridge the wetlands? As you probably saw Saturday as well on the plans, the access road does not bridge any wetlands. There's a continuous strip of wetland throughout the roadway layout. The access road is best fit and centered on the upland where the wetlands are the closest on both sides. In that same area, grading on the east side includes a retaining wall. And on the west side, we did have grading, a 3-to-1 slope that was, the grading would be in the existing cart path area, but we have been asked to look at that grading on the west side, where it's relatively close to the wetlands. So as part of our, as we move forward, we're going to consider looking at that grading along the west side of the roadway in that narrow portion of the site. Stephen's second question was that the understanding that the existing dirt road can be submerged during various times of the year during high rain events. Does the developer provide specific information on the construction of the road, final width, elevation, and water management? If they do, confirm the requirements. I think you probably saw there was some puddles, relatively low areas of that existing cart path. I think I also pointed out that the vertical alignment through that area is raised anywhere between 3 to 6 feet to make some separation to the low point in order to properly drain the water to drainage basins that have been designed, and as well to make sure there's no flooding in the future. So that is incorporated into the design based on the vertical alignment. His next question was, are the proposed road setbacks from the wetlands in compliance with both town and state requirements? Yes, they are, but they do require us to go through this wetland permitting process. So they are, as long as you get the wetland permit that we're submitting an NOI for. And then the last question he had, has the developer or the town evaluated the ecological impacts and the risk of a hazardous cargo accident in this aquifer, which is immediately upgradient of the town wells? And the first note in response was that the drainage systems are designed to meet the regulations for the stormwater management for a site like this, even when it is also within the aquifer. So once we go through the peer review and make sure there's no additional comments on the peer review, if we meet the stormwater standards, they're also applicable with the site being the aquifer. However, as a result of the site walk, some elements are being reviewed. One of the elements is the use of the low impact design that we had permitted versus a more standard catch basin and pipe system. There were a couple areas on the site where we're going to review whether the swales could be moved from the west side, which was partially in the riverfront area, over to the east side of the road, as near the beginning of the road. But we might also want to consider that with respect to containing a spill or something like that, some of these more structural systems can provide a little bit of extra safety, like deep sump catch basins with hoods allow oil to be trapped in the catch basins themselves, as well as the proprietary separators, oil sediment separators, allow for even additional oil and hazardous separation. I mean, as far as a catastrophic hazardous spill, similar to any Leonard Street approach, any of the surrounding neighborhood roadways, there's no additional measures beyond the normal pre-treatment and treatment that were required. But the introduction of just through that area in the riverfront of possibly a more standard system would reduce our footprint of tree removal, of existing tree removal, and possibly provide an added level of safety for spills and things like that. But we're open to discussing that with you guys, particularly in the heavily wooded area, the first stations 0 up to about station 6, where we were talking, where it's also bordering the riverfront area. I think up in the fields where we don't have to remove trees, I'm comfortable with the low impact design swales to maintain and stay within the design. And even the basins up on that corner, they're partially out in the grass and partially in the woods, but they're far away. They're much higher elevation and far away from the riverfront areas. So, interested in if you do have any feedback on the trade-offs of the low impact design, which is a larger footprint and a little more land area than a more standard catch basin design. And again, just on that first run of the roadway where we're in amongst the riverfront area.
Any possibility of bringing up a plan, particularly for that entryway?
If you want to let me share.
The proposal isn't for any buildings that would have hazardous waste, right? This is office and mixed-use building?
Correct. Can you see the plan?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in here. So I'm going to use the one that we had marked up for the site walk, so you can kind of, if you can visualize. And I think the areas we're talking about is this swale on the west side, where you can see some of the work overlaps the riverfront area. We're going to look at a couple things with respect to that. Could it be moved to the east side, where it's upland? I'm trying to see if it's actually even out of the buffer zone, I believe. So it's upland only. But again, you could reduce the limit of work on both sides if we just add just a couple catch basins that would still drain to the bioretention and the infiltration system. We could reduce the number of square feet by doing that. And again, it's a trade-off to do the country type LID drainage versus using a little bit more land area and land disturbance to add some swales and country drainage on there. I don't know if you want me to go further up the site. This is where wetlands are on both sides. We do have a retaining wall on the east side proposed, and however, we were grading out the slopes on the west side, and the reason I didn't do a retaining wall on that, because we were grading, all this grading is actually in that area of cart path, so it's already cleared. We're not taking down any additional trees by that grading. So I used that as an to slope down and to not have a wall on both sides. And since we already had the trees removed, we were hoping to, basically not put a retaining wall on both sides of this project. And then up here, these swales and grass areas are already out in the field. I think they're a good use of country drainage for that area, as well as we're going to tighten up limit of work through here. There's some areas where it can just naturally, with no change of design, we can tighten up limit of work just to limit disturbance. If you have, I'd like to take any other questions that might have come up during the the walk that we could, because we still have, I am still working on the peer review response as well. We'll incorporate all this, these discussions and anything else the commission might have at this point.
I didn't receive any extra questions today, Mark.
Okay.
All right, and it's obviously not relevant to this process, but it just seems so odd. You have this carve out with such a steep bank. Was this an excavation site at one point for gravel, you think?
Oh, that kind of hole.
Well, you have this whole
Yeah.
carve out.
There's evidence of between the old farming. The field has been used for hay for a while, and before that, it was probably some other kind of farm use. I'm sure somebody just dug through that hole. It was the profile shows it a little bit better, but yes, there was a.
No, but I mean the one to the right of that, this huge area where there's
the one that's below the field and to the right of the road.
Yeah, it just seems odd that there's such a steep banking. It seems like there was a huge excavation in that area. It doesn't seem like a natural structure.
We had the same discussion. There's no evidence that I have from old aerials. You see the trees down in this thing are extremely adult trees. There's some 4-foot caliber trees down there. So those are old trees. It's just, it is a peculiar landform.
Yeah, all right. So any questions from members of the commission about this? And so there was the question of whether or not any movement of the entry roadway would preserve riverfront or not. And it seems from my perspective, it seems the current design minimizes impacts. Are there any questions from commission members, or maybe Jennifer, you have a comment about that?
Just the economic alternatives analysis would require him to just look at putting the swale on the opposite side of the road and whether that's feasible or not.
Okay, is that a discussion you'd be willing to submit, a narrative?
Correct, yeah, and there'll be even some sketch concept type plans to go with it to describe that.
Okay. And if there are no further questions or comments from members of the commission, we can consider questions from members of the participants, the audience. And again, the process is to go to the bottom of your screen, click the participants button, and click the raise hand option. Just scanning through, I don't see any raised hands. So this is an item that will be continued, I presume. So our next, we don't have any further discussion on this tonight, is that correct? All right. So
No, they were just giving an update.
all right. And so our next meeting is January 11th. Is that a reasonable date for you guys to return?
Yes.
So we can consider a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to, continue file 250-1065 to the January 11th meeting of the commission.
Motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by
I'll second that.
Dan Doyle. Roll call vote. Ron?
Aye.
Dan Pearson?
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
And Carrie, okay, and we have Lisa?
Abstain.
Okay, and Dan Doyle?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. All right, thank you guys for attending tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is duplicate order of conditions for file number 250-1015 concerning Thomas Sullivan, 312 Taunton Avenue. And this has a lot of, well,
So
Not
Ken
usual.
Thompson is here.
okay.
Ken, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm working with Rob Sullivan. He wants to purchase the property. And in doing so, we need to close out the original order conditions, 2008 order conditions, and upgrade the roof drainage systems to infiltration systems. And before we can start the work, we have to file with Registry of Deeds the order conditions. So right now we're asking for a duplicate because in 2018 somebody put a notice of intent in with you guys and it was permanent but never registered with the deeds. So what we're trying to do is purchase the property, and to do so we need to upgrade the infiltrators and get them up to snuff so we can get an order condition certificate of compliance so we can move forward from there. So we're requesting a duplicate with the new owner, Rob Sullivan's name on it.
Jennifer, I thought the issue was that the work was no longer, or the wetlands are no longer located within Norton?
That, what I want to, in the interim, we went to the Taunton, I'm a botanist, wetland scientist, and we went to the Taunton, I reviewed the site, I flagged it. I have a different wetland line that was originally approved. My line's 420 feet to the east in the town of Taunton. We filed an ANRAD with Taunton, and it was approved, and that paperwork was submitted to Jennifer. And I guess at this point, how can we proceed with you folks to get agreement or disagreement on my line? Should we file an ANRAD? Should we file an RDA, or just request the agent to go out there and look at the line? What had happened in the past, what I believed happened in the past, it was a vegetation only survey, and it makes sense when you look at it as a vegetation only. It's all red maple with glossy falls buckthorn under it, a very dense stand all the way through the whole property. And but if you do the soils, you're getting 5.6, 5.4. And when I went out with Taunton, we just went down one side, came back up the other, and never found a hydric soil until we were down by the river, in the floodplain of the river. So all the work, the wetland, the floodplain, the buffer zone is all located in Taunton. And I'd like to invite you guys out there to take a look and agree or disagree with me.
Jennifer, did you have a chance to review the site?
I haven't gone back out since the new information came in. No.
Okay.
But they do have an approved line from Taunton Conservation Commission.
But Taunton didn't look at Norton, correct?
Yes, we entered the property from Norton. And we started right behind the existing building on the south side and took it all the way back into Taunton and reversed it coming up the other side. It's a long, narrow lot.
Right. Is Taunton's agent versed in delineations and could confirm that you're finding?
Well, she can confirm that the colors of soils are awful bright all the way through. I mean, wherever you wanted me to put a hole, I put a hole.
Right.
But,
So
I mean,
the only way we're going to close this out is that if Norton confirms there's no wetlands in Norton, correct? I mean, Taunton's opinion is Taunton's opinion in Taunton, but I think we need to look at Norton
Sure.
in the boundary of Norton.
I mean, we're willing to file an RDA or an ANRAD with you.
Well, is it worth it just looking? I'm just trying to think if we can just use the RDA that you prepared for Taunton
Yes.
instead of having you file again.
Well, that'd be fine.
I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Jennifer? And then,
I mean, we have a copy of it, so I can certainly go out and look at it.
okay.
Well, if you were to go out and and look at it and come back with the next meeting and give us a report, would that be sufficient?
Right, but then we would still have to issue the duplicate order. We could probably just say that the work never started, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of having you do another application, that doesn't make sense. I would just see if we could look at it in the context of having the application to Taunton.
Jennifer, would you like me to go out with you?
No, I can go out.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, so so we can bring this up again at our next meeting. Is that acceptable?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
In the interim, can we get the duplicate order going so that we can get the paperwork to begin the work so we can put the infiltrators in? That still has to be closed out. It's an open order of conditions. So I need to get a certificate of compliance so we can purchase the property.
All
It's a separate issue.
So if we issue the duplicate, it doesn't affect the resolution of this revised information.
It's a procedural thing for right now.
All right. Well, it sounds like I mean we're all in agreement. We can go ahead and issue the duplicate, and then we'll resolve the issue of the new information at the next meeting. So it looks like we can consider a motion to issue a duplicate order of conditions for file number 250-1015.
So moved.
Motion made by Ron and seconded by
I'll second.
Dan Pearson. Roll call vote. Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
And Lisa?
Aye.
And Dan Doyle. Oh, I think I missed Carrie.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye for me too.
Okay. All right. And I'll vote an aye. So we're going to issue the duplicate, and then we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice holiday.
Thank
I
you.
think we have to have some kind of motion to continue.
All right.
Well, this is not actually a hearing. This is just
Okay.
this is the kind of a discussion.
Okay.
Bye,
All
everybody.
right.
Have a good night.
So our next item, we have we don't have any partial or full certificates of compliance on the agenda.
Nope.
And there are a couple of administrative approvals here.
Right. 2 hazard trees, one at 90 Mansfield Ave and one at 12 South Highland as part of their wetland permit that we already approved.
All right, so that's all set. And then we
do have one other request that should probably go to the Conservation Commission. So I'm just going to put the picture on the screen of 20 Talbot Drive. And I know the owner is on the call, so she can talk about her request.
Okay. All right. Lisa, you would be the owner.
Lisa Foley, if you want to unmute yourself, you can.
Yes, here I am. Thank you.
Yep.
We built our house in Norton 23 years ago, and we built a pool. And the reason I'm bringing it up to the Conservation Commission is because I'm very aware of the fact that the fence along the pool, we were very careful to get the Conservation Commission approval, because right behind those trees, about, I would say 20 yards or so, is the Rumford River. So the tree that I took a picture of over 23 years has grown significantly, and it blocks a lot of the sun during the summertime. And I'd like to take it down, but I didn't want to obviously just go ahead and do it without anybody's permission. So I wanted to just bring it forward for you guys to take a look at. I don't need any other trees, it's just that one.
All right, and fairly substantial tree. Would you hire a tree person for that, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So does this fall under hazard tree, or what would?
I mean, I guess you could argue that it could, although my house is surrounded by scrub pines, so everything is a hazard tree where I'm living right now. But it is really more of, it doesn't look like it now because of the time of year, but it really does take up a lot of the sun in the backyard. And so it is a substantial tree. It's, but there are others as well. But this one in particular is one that I'd like to request to have down.
So
it's not really a hazard. It's not diseased. It's not cracked. There's no danger of it falling down. It's really more of an aesthetic issue. So, a request for determination is probably appropriate.
All right.
That's true, John. Thank you.
So, Jennifer, you can go over that with the applicant so she can complete the application.
Yep, we can do that.
All right. Is that something you're fine with?
Yeah.
All right.
I
So
just had one quick question. Were you thinking about replanting one or two new baby trees?
There's so much vegetation behind there. You can't walk anywhere in the summertime. It is significant. So I don't really think planting an additional tree there is necessary. As you can see, there's a lot back there.
Okay.
and there's easy access to that site?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we were to do it, maybe not so much during the summer and spring, but if we were to do it before it got too warm, there's easy access. Otherwise, all of that in front of that tree is completely grown in, and there's a lot of thorns, so it would be difficult to get to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'd want to see in your request where the equipment would access, how the equipment would access the tree,
Okay.
the location.
We would probably hire, I have somebody that takes down trees. It's not something that I would have a large truck go into, frankly, because I think it would ruin some of the backyard and it would ruin some of the vegetation. We would have, we have two people that would probably end up climbing that tree and taking it off bit by bit from the top.
Okay.
And you really can't get any large piece of equipment back there without real damage. I wouldn't want to do that.
Right, that's just what my fear is.
Right.
That they'll say the only way they can get to it is by a bucket truck or something. So if you had discussion,
No. Yeah.
yet?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, have you had discussions with a tree company yet?
I have.
Okay, and they think they can do it on foot. Just
They do.
okay. So just if you could put that in the application, it would be great.
Okay. Great.
All right. So we'll look forward to that application.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Next item on the agenda is review draft minutes from 11/23/20. We had a full board. And any comments? We had a lot of discussions described.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft meeting minutes of Monday, November 23rd, 2020.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by?
Second.
Was that Ron? I think it was Ron. All right. All those in favor, roll call vote. Dan Pearson.
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Dan Doyle?
Aye.
I'll throw in an aye. Very good. So we have new business and old business. Anything to comment?
Yeah, I have a bunch of little things for the rest of the agenda. So both emergency action plans for the Norton Reservoir Dam and Chartley Dam were submitted. That's an annual update that I have to do obviously every year. The community rating system program is another annual event that I have to certify. We also have to do an even bigger certification every 5 years. So this was the 5-year. We have a 30-day letter of, one more issue that I have to take care of. Otherwise, we're all set for the community rating system program. That's part of FEMA. By doing this program, everybody in the floodplain who has to buy insurance gets a 5% discount. If we go to old business under violations, I ended up sending out 6 more letters today. Yay! So hopefully we'll hear back from people. 184 West Main Street didn't actually start the restoration last week. I think we just need to revise the enforcement order to give them the time they need to actually do the planting, but I spoke with the company today and they're supposed to be starting this week.
That is the business on that little curve that used to have the bank in it, or still might have the bank in it. Okay.
Yeah. Under grants, I found out today we got the cable access grant, so I got $2,000 for the drones for part of the boating access master plan. So that's helpful. And special Springtown meeting has been called for May 8th. It's a Saturday, and the articles are due February 1st. In case you think of anything you want to have an article about. And that's it for me.
Well, thanks for applying for that grant, Jennifer. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good.
So when you say it is for drones, what more specifically does that entail?
So at town meeting, we got $19,000 for Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development District to help us come up with a master plan for boating access all around Norton. Town Council is doing the deed research, and I got $10,000 from Taunton River Stewardship Council for an engineer to do the survey plans. The $2,000 that I just got for the drones is part of what Serpid was proposing to do, and so they can help with just having pictures, doing story maps, having things online, helping with our the plans and brochures that we're going to make, but it also helps with the survey work.
Okay, so this is a company that has expertise in drone use?
Serpid's been using a drone for a while. They're actually using it on the master plan as well. So I've gone out with them to fly over some conservation properties for part of the master plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So piecing lots of money together.
Okay, so but you're not specifically going to become a drone pilot yourself?
No. We're not buying a drone either. We're just having Serpid, our regional planning agency, do the work.
Okay. All right, so any other items for tonight?
No.
I guess we can consider a motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn?
All right, motion by
Second. I'll second.
Second Dan, and we'll do a voice aye or nay.
Aye.
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 Until the 11th.
Happy holidays, everybody. Stay safe. Don't spread. Wear a mask.
Good to you, Dan.
Yeah, happy holidays.
I will. I always do. I always.
Happy holidays.
All right, ready to go. Till next time.
Thank you, everyone.